Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Analysis. I'm your host, Maz Patel. Protests in Iran have largely faded, but only after the arrest of tens of thousands of people and many deaths. Business assets have been seized, and those linked by the Iranian government to the unrest have been charged with terrorism. For now, the Iranian authorities have reasserted control, yet beneath the surface, the same grievances that fueled nationwide demonstrations remain unresolved. With a collapsing currency, soaring inflation and deepening sanctions, Iran now faces a stark choice: to make painful compromises to revive its battered economy or risk another wave of unrest. Meanwhile, Israel's Channel 14 reports that the US and Israel have reached an understanding to launch fast and powerful strikes against Iran if needed, following a late-night meeting in Tel Aviv between CENTCOM Commander Brad Cooper and senior Israeli officials. Cooper said US thinking is based on carrying out a fast, sudden and clean operations, with US officials stressing they remain ready to act and would focus any strike on those responsible for harming civilians and protesters. They are reaffirming Washington's commitment to protecting its regional allies, principally Israel. A US military aircraft carrier strike group and other US assets will arrive in the Middle East region in the coming days, even as US President Donald Trump voices hopes of avoiding new military action against Iran. This is what Trump said.
Where do things stand with Iran? The U.S. has got sizable military assets.
We're watching Iran. You know, we have a lot of ships going that direction, just in case. We have a big flotilla going in that direction, and we'll see what happens. We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely. 837, mostly young men, were going to be hung on Thursday. And I said, if you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. It'll make what we did to your Iran nuclear look like peanuts. And an hour before this horrible thing was going to take place, they canceled it. And they actually said they canceled it. They didn't postpone it. They canceled it. So that was a good sign. But we have an armada. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction, and maybe we won't have to use it. We'll see.
The recent protests, which began over a currency crash and quickly escalated into calls to overthrow the Islamic Republic, led to some of the most violent scenes since 1979. Death tolls vary widely. State media cites 3,100 deaths. Some rights groups say 5,000 deaths, and others claim the deaths were in the tens of thousands. But this is what the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Iran had to say.
Absolutely. I've been receiving many reports of security forces, including plainclothes security forces, going into hospitals to identify protesters, but also to detain them. And I think, and that has been reported, again, not just in one province, but in multiple provinces. And I think this creates a really chilling effect. I mean, medical facilities needs to be a safe place for everyone. And I think what this is happening as a result of this is that wounded protesters are choosing not to seek medical attention. And I think that would inevitably result in further deaths and injuries that really need to be treated. Many reports of hospital staff reporting that the security forces have raided their hospital, as well as families going into these hospitals, knowing that they were there the night before, for example, and showing up the next day and their loved ones no longer there. One point I just want to stress is whether the death toll is, 3,000 as the authorities reported or significantly more, no one should be dying for demanding peacefully economic and political change in their own country. Absolutely. I've received reports of families being forced to pay to retrieve their loved one's body. And again, this isn't an isolated incident. And the amount that I'm hearing is around 5,000 to 7,000 US dollars to get their family members' bodies back. And just to put this in context, this is a huge financial burden for families already living in economic hardship. And what I would add to this is that families, when they go to the morgues, to hospitals to collect their loved ones' remains, they've also been forced to sign documents stating that their family member was actually part of the security force, the member of the Basij, allegedly killed by protesters. And I think if this is true, this practice really compounds grief with extortion. So not just... I think the rhetoric of labeling, peaceful protesters as terrorists or rioters, I think it's a way of authorities to justify the brutal crackdown. And I think it very much ignores that the protest was domestic and organically spread. And I think the narrative of labeling peaceful protesters as terrorists, the same narrative was also deployed during the 2022 protest. Lethal force by security forces can only be used as an absolute last resort to protect life, and when using force, it needs to be necessary and also proportionate. And I have seen countless videos of unarmed protesters being shot by what appears to be by security forces, and in those incidences that would indicate that they are unlawful deaths and arbitrary killing. Among those, there seems to be a significant number of people with eye injuries from pellets, and this is a similar pattern to what we've seen during the Women Life Freedom Movement. I've also received reports of protesters shot in the upper chest and head, basically targeting vital organs. And the scale is nationwide, and this isn't an isolated incident specific to a particular or several provinces. It's across all 31 provinces.
And as Iran's regional alliances weaken, its economy contracts, and the threat of a potential US attack looms, the long-standing social contract, security in exchange for limited freedoms, appears broken. As the country now stands at a critical crossroads, there is clear schism between the alternative exiled opposition, to which Iranians, the US and Middle East neighbours will be looking to come in and fill the vacuum. Let's watch this.
Huge protests in Iran have galvanised the country's exiled opposition. But there's a bitter and long-standing divide between the two main factions, united though they may be in hating the ruling clerics. Here's Sanam Vakil of London's Chatham House.
I would say that Iranians are relatively unified in seeking the ousting of the Islamic Republic, but not clear on what comes next or who comes next.
On one side are monarchists supporting Reza Pahlavi, son of the ousted Shah, and on the other a more organised leftist group, the Mujahideen-e-Khalq. The split dates back to before the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So how popular are they on Iran's streets? It's hard to gauge how much support either faction has inside Iran, and whether they could shape future events. Diplomats and analysts say they've got more support among Iranians abroad than in the country. Some demonstrators have chanted support for Pahlavi, who has encouraged the protests from his base in the United States. "Do not abandon the streets," he said in a recent address. "My heart is with you. I know that I will soon be by your side." Pahlavi has praised US President Donald Trump's, quote, readiness to help. But the absence of a unified opposition has complicated international approaches to the protests. And even while considering airstrikes, Trump has questioned Pahlavi's sway.
He represents nostalgia of the past. He is an alternative to what they currently have, but might not be the number one choice for people inside Iran.
Iran's last Shah, Pahlavi's father, was a close Western ally who framed himself as a modernizer while resisting democratic change. Under him, the gap between rich and poor widened. Iran watchers have mixed views over whether the supportive chants show Pahlavi's importance is growing or simply reflect the absence of other known opposition figures. The Mujahideen Khalq, or MEK, opposes the Islamic Republic and the Pahlavi monarchy. Its de facto leader is Mariam Rajavi. The MEK blends leftist and Islamist ideas, and it carried out bombings inside Iran before and after the revolution. Reuters has seen no evidence of public support for the MEK in the latest protests, though they say they have a widespread and active support base in Iran. Vakil says no organisation has been built that can bring together Iranians from all walks of life.
Iranians in Iran are, I think, not just looking to the diaspora for their future. They're the ones that are suffering inordinate amount of physical, emotional, and economic pain. And there are plenty of activism and ideas and agency that exists inside the country. But many Iranian opposition figures and leaders are in Iran's jails.
So, to discuss all of this, we've got our first guest, who is Amin Farjudian, a UK-based academic who recently returned from Iran and witnessed the unrest. He found himself travelling through areas affected by initially peaceful demonstrations and later by violence. Whilst the early protests were largely confined to major bazaars, things, he says, changed on the 8th of January when small groups of rioters began taking over streets, blocking roads and attacking ordinary civilians. And on 9th of January, Amin, along with his cousin and nephew, were violently attacked while in their car and escaped the incident. Amin joins us today to share what he saw on the ground. Along with Amin, we have our second guest, who is Azita Shafazand, an Iranian political analyst from Washington, D.C. Thank you for both of you. Amin, let's start off with you. But tell us about the moment when you first witnessed the events from your perspective.
Yeah, hi. So the short answer is that when I saw the rioters, I realized it was different from what I was used to. I've known protests before in Iran, and usually, there's protests, people go around chanting, swearing, whatever, and then, there's a bit of heavy-handed approach from either side, and then it finishes. But this time when I went to Iran, I went there on 31st of December, so I knew before going there that there were protests, but as I said, we're used to that. Because of the reason that I had to go to Iran, I had to commute a lot, so I was out most of the time. The first few days there were protests, but life was going on. You could go out, you could go shopping, go and see your relatives, whatever. But then as I said, on the evening of 8th of January, I noticed the presence of certain elements among protesters. So I would call protesters, and these people, I would call them rioters, just, to distinguish them.
Was it gangs of rioters? Were they Iranian? I mean, there's a lot of talk of, admission in some respects, Mossad agents being on the ground, or those from other countries being on the ground who are paid Mossad or CIA agents. Is that how you felt? Were they local? Did you recognize any of them? Or I'm talking about the rioters, not the protesters.
No, the only interaction that we had was they shouted at us in Persian, so I know that much.
And the Persian was authentic?
Yeah, it was authentic. I wouldn't doubt that even if they were Mossad agents, which I don't know, I wouldn't doubt that they speak fluent Persian without any foreign accent.
And then, from there, it escalated, obviously. We saw pictures and images of shopping malls burnt down, even mosques being firebombed, and horrific scenes where it was quite clear people had lost their lives.
Yeah, that is true. From what I saw, these people, they were different from the protesters which outnumbered them by a few orders of magnitude. But you would see, for example, a gang of, let's say, between 2 to 20 people. I mean, in some places there were 2 of them who just blocked the road. They were very aggressive. To tell you the absolute truth, I didn't see any killing with my own eyes, but I saw destruction with my own eyes. Destruction of property, destruction of cars, for example, setting fire on the roads, which, later on, the first time that rain comes, all of these will become potholes and make it very difficult for people to go around. They have set fire on fire engines and ambulances, hospitals, etc. And all of that is the money that should come from the very people who were protesting against the economic issues. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that. Azita, I want to bring you in. Has the social contract between the Iranian people and the government, some call it the regime, has that broken down? I'll analyse whether outside forces are to blame, but let's talk about the protesters per se initially.
Okay, before we go to that, I want to, because you brought the U.S. Special Rapporteur about the human rights in Iran, and I want to say that report is remind me MAK report, which is usually for many years they give those type of report.
No, I understand. I can completely understand you saying that, but I want to ask you, what's your view on the actual protests? Were they over genuine grievances? Do you understand that? Is there a feeling in Iran amongst ordinary people that they no longer want to have this government or this, the system in place anymore? What's your call on that?
Well, I have to disagree about that, because at the same time on Monday of that, after January 10th, there was a big demonstration all over the country for supporting unity for Iran.
Yes.
And I believe, of course, no reporter, I didn't see any report to show that demonstration all around the Iran. And for myself, I was in Iran. I came back 2 months ago. Yes, there is a hardship, the economy hardship, but I don't know. I have to say, to compare with the so many years of the sanction, is still in Iran, the majority middle class is better than American middle class. I have to say that.
Okay.
And about the Mossad agent, I can go over the scenario, and which is carbon copy of the Syria, that they want to bring the internal civil war. In Washington, D.C., there was a demonstration about a month ago regarding to Palestine. Some of our Iranian, we went to join the fellow Palestinian for support the Palestine against the genocide. The Mossad exactly wearing black T-shirt, black pants, and I know them because I see them in Israeli embassy, because we had encampment in the Israeli embassy. Lots of IDF, they coming here, they speak Persian.
Okay.
They speak Hebrew and Persian, and there was and most of these demonstration around the different countries supported, paid by Israeli and Mossad agent organizing this through the different think tank.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's any doubt external agencies were involved. In fact, the former American officials were gloating about it and even tweeting about that. So I don't think there's any dispute about that. Even Israelis, they openly admit they are out to throw the Iranian government. I mean, tell us, do you think that the Iranian government is teetering on the verge of collapse? Does it still have popular support? You were there on the ground. Tell us what people are saying on the ground. Obviously, you saw protesters, and many protesters and protests were genuine as well. So how do you feel generally that the people are feeling? And obviously I understand, there may be different views there.
Sure. So the way I see it is that just going by the voting records, there's about 25-30% of people in Iran who genuinely support Islamic Republic. That's what they like. Then you have a very, very small number of people who are, I don't know, monarchists or MEK supporters or whatever. And then you've got the people in between these two groups. From what I saw, even the ones who were very militant in the verbally, I don't mean, in action, they, once it came to the possibility of military attack, regime change, whatever, they just backed off.
Okay. So they were frightened of the chaos, I suppose, as Azita said, that took place in Syria, where an endless civil war and hundreds of thousands of people being killed. You're saying that people do not want that? Azita, I just want to bring you back in then. If that's the case, why are so many Iranian exiles in the US, for example, in this country, why are they so vehemently allied with the enemies of the Iranian government? For example, the son of the previous Shah, the MEK and other groups. Why are they, or is that not the case as well? Are we seeing a certain perspective being thrown by Western media narratives?
Well, like the other people, they are brainwashed, and they are having the think tank having lots of influence through the social media, through these people. Mm-hmm. And actually, if someone coming and talking differently, they are outcast them, and they are telling them, oh, like one professors in university say, we don't want to attack of United States or help of Trump to bring Reza Pahlavi back. Now they are gathering the signature to throw that professor out of the university. So those type of tactic and organization, I am sure, organized by AIPAC or any,
So are you saying,
Mossad.
Azita, is your position, sorry to interrupt, is your position that a majority, many Iranians do not want to see a violent overthrow? They want to have a peaceful transition towards a compromise, I suppose, between the government and the people. Is that how they see it? What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, they don't want a war. That's, I'm sure about it. And I think we should put the demand to remove the sanction or ease the sanction if they are thinking about the people in Iran. And if they are thinking about the change is not happening without the economy, getting better in Iran. So all this, when we look at it, most of the people, they don't have the knowledge. If you have a knowledge what's going on to your country in the broad, I'm not talking about inside.
I understand.
Yeah, you are asking to remove the sanction.
Okay.
Stop the violation.
Azita, I'll pause you there. I just need to bring Amin back in before we finish. Amin, do you believe that Iran, if attacked by the US and Israel and its allies, will fall, the government will fall? Do you think it's on the verge of collapse? Very quickly, please.
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, and Azita, what's your view? Do you think the airstrikes that they're planning will be successful?
I don't think so. I was in Iran after the 12 days war. Okay. Actually, I was there, and I went to see some of the destruction they did, and I took some pictures. Actually, we saw that people, even any discomfort they have, they're going to get around the flag. Okay. They are standing with Iran. And that's the big mistake. That's why I try advocate to U.S. negotiation, diplomacy. I'm against any stroke, any war. It's not going to be clean cut. I go drop some bombs and it's finished. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. This time, Iran is very strong military and they have lots of people. inside Iran behind the government.
Thank you, Azita. I appreciate that. I mean, listen, thank you so much for your patience, both of you. Both of you, thank you so much for being over here. And today, obviously, we focused on Iran and what takes place. We'll be keeping a close eye on what takes place over the next few days. I've been Mas Patel. This has been Analysis. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us.